back to this week's episode of Making It. So today we have an unbelievable guest on the show. We discussed some great topics from the coronavirus pandemic to returning to the office, to the importance of having people and the community around you, to the startup ecosystem, to what it takes to start a business, to what it takes to drive the business forward. Also, we discussed some of his new projects, which I think will be really insightful for you guys and provide some great content. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Pete Mills. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to Making It. So as I said before, we've got an amazing guest on today. Pete, welcome to the show. Really excited to talk to you and find out a little bit about you and what you've done. So, I guess we'll get started and find out a little bit about your background. So, Pete, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Will. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I quick background, I suppose. I've been involved in technology in some way or another for all my professional career, which started out at IBM as a graduate placement student back in 2004. I say that now like it's really old, but it feels it. And some early sort of technology businesses I was involved with. A little brief hiccup with a career change where I tried to be a corporate lawyer for 2 years, but we'll scratch that from the record.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my journey into Calls 9 and building that with a guy called Adam Roney, which is a software business in Leeds, which I exited from in January, but those guys are still flying the flag. So, and right here to the present with alt theory.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about, obviously you were at Calls 9 for I think 8 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of helped you start there? I mean, we're going way back here, so let's see what the difference is and kind of how things have changed since then.
Cool. Yeah, okay. That's a good place to start. So yeah, I joked, and I'm only sort of joking because I've still got really good friends that I met during my time at the law firm. But Adam and we joined as trainee solicitors, so it's like a 2-year training program.
Okay.
And we joined at a really interesting time for the law firm because it was during the financial recession, or the Great Depression, as I suppose it became known with the financial markets. And I think we were like coming in at a time when they'd done some massive redundancy rounds, and they wanted to try and boost morale, I guess, and do things a bit differently. And when businesses are in that environment, they've got no choice but to look at things differently, exactly the way that we're having to do things differently now.
Yeah, definitely.
So basically, there was a first prize of £20,000 to come up with a new idea that would change the way the firm would work. And so I was 25, 26 at the time, same as Adam. We'd come out of lots of studying. We were in our corporate careers and we were like, yes, we're going to be millionaires doing this.
Yeah.
So we got our ideas in with respect to taking, like, this was an international business. So how do we get our clients working online, bringing everything together into one online system, which it doesn't sound very radical now, but for a big corporate law firm 12 years ago, that was a big deal. So we ran that for 2 years internally. We basically built that with internal funding, lots of support from the leadership of the law firm. So that got us starting to train up with how do you talk to senior stakeholders. And then, to the credit, the leadership of the law firm introduced us to their clients to start showing them and telling them what we did as this online offer. So really, we had a dress rehearsal for like, what would it be like running our own business in this really safe environment for 2 years?
With all the support you need.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I, to be honest, and I think probably Adam was the same. We looked at that situation and we're like, well, by that point, do I really want to be a solicitor? No. I want to build a business. I want to be involved in technology and I want to help grow that. And I remember sitting down with and he's still a friend of mine as well, so I won't name him, but I remember sitting down with him. He was really senior in the firm, and saying, look, I don't want to qualify. I want to run this as a business. I want to build a business. And I can still see him now being like, oh, that's not the structure. That's not how it works. Yeah. And I think I did about 3 or 4 weeks after that. It's that in my mind, it feels like it's probably longer, maybe a couple of months. But I just remember going, I'm not building my own thing. And
it's not mine. I don't own it.
Yeah, 100%. So, and this is a lesson I've always believed in. My parents taught me, which has always been right with people. So came to the end of the training contract. I did a little bit of time where I was sort of helping them sell this product, but it wasn't my business. I didn't really have control over where to take it anymore. And so I shook hands with everybody, and to the testament of that, when we started Calls 9, those guys became clients 2 years later. So, and still have friends to.
So relationships stayed good, and you didn't fall out, which is key in business. But you mentioned something there. You were talking about how you had that internal structure to kind of help you and kind of guide you. What do you think the difference is now in terms of that? So if you were starting, well, you have started Alt Theory, in August. How did that come about, and what's the difference between when you started Calls 9 and obviously starting Alt Theory?
That's a great question, and it's something that I've obviously had a lot of time to think about with put down. I look back at myself at 25, and I look at what I was probably quite confident, and maybe not really having the skills to back that up. Right. So probably like most mid-20s people, they're like, oh, I'm out there, I'm smashing it. But actually, what skills have I truly learned? And even though I had enough to get through the door, because my personality, I suppose, has always been like that. I've always been really positive. I've always enjoyed being around people. But actually, you need that bit extra to start really driving stuff. So I guess what Calls 9 gave me was the learning and the real sort of, there's no one to catch us now, right? So made some hard lessons learned with employing people, with investing our own money into technology development, into not quite getting those sales conversations right. That we'd get a lot right, but we'd also get ones that we should have got right, but through experience at that time we just weren't ready. So I guess Go for it. Sorry,
I was just going to jump on what you said there in terms of, not getting things right. What do you think the best thing you've ever got wrong, if that makes sense? So like, how did you learn? What did you learn most from getting wrong?
That's a great question. Wow.
I'm testing you today.
Yeah. I'm going to be sort of like thinking about this for the rest of the week. I
edit it in. Don't worry.
There's probably lots of lessons. I think funny enough, I was with Alt Theory's accountancy this morning, and I was talking about where we're setting up, where we go in the direction, etc. And I think listening to like his feedback on where I'm strategically thinking about it in a completely different way. And so like it would be very easy for me to go around and be Pete Mills and to talk to people and to talk to clients, but I really want to grow a business, Will. So what I'm thinking about the first hires, I'm thinking about the service that we're giving to people, and actually what does that mean for future plans, but make an investment now. Whereas going back in a time machine, I didn't really do that. And to be fair, and this is another thing about partnerships, obviously I was in a very tight partnership. So you make allowances, you make, let them have that bit of rope for that activity or whatever. And now that I'm sort of single-minded and focused on my own business,
your own direction.
I can just drive it the way that I feel instinctively it needs to be driven. I'm not making co-decisions. And that, I think, probably a few things mixed up in that, but certainly, yes, lessons from before, but now this strategic planning around what is it that we're trying to build?
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of, being on your own now and kind of going forward with that, you mentioned there, you were speaking to your account guy and, discussing certain things. And do you still take that outside counsel all the time then to kind of guide you? Do you still stay in contact with certain people, what kind of guide you as well as,
Yeah.
yourself? And even family,
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that play a factor?
Yeah, I think like external counsel and advice I've always recognized the importance of that, and just being able to sometimes just go, I think this is right, but it'd be really good to run it past somebody. And even recent things I've learned, like being more unemotional about certain decisions. So I give you a quick idea that a couple of the businesses that we're working with at the minute, they were getting quite hung up about brand and about positioning, and like, hang on, we're early stage here. This is not setting the record for the next 10 years. This is about here and now, and actually what does that mean? And I think that sort of thinking, and that I've certainly been shaped by people around me that have helped me just go, right, expand that problem out, and what does that look like? And sometimes when you expand it out, you might not have the answer. So getting some advice is really good.
Yeah. And is that where kind of alt theory came from then, in terms of, helping other businesses, grow and challenge things and kind of expand from there?
Yeah, I think like what's really interesting is, Calls 9 went on and it is going on a certain journey. It's a very much a technology business. It's got engineers in the business. That's what it does. And I'm not that person from my background. So what I learned to do was take solutions to companies, and really they were presenting problems to me, which were around how do we change? How do we grow? How do we innovate? And so what I learned how to do was basically go into those environments that, by the way, all those cultures are different. As you know, as a professional, you're talking to different businesses. They have different cultural requirements. The MD might be different. You'll have your favorites. You'll have your, I've got to deal with those guys, but fine.
Can't say that.
That's the bit where you go, edit. Yeah. But ultimately, like, what they're looking at it, it's like, okay, so what do I want to build now, and what do I want to go out and do? And I think there's a massive gap around really being clear about the output that transformation projects have, which is ultimately, as a business, what do you want to do? You want to grow. That's what people come to alt theory for. They're like, we're 10 million, want to be 30 million. We're 1 million, want to be 3 million. How can you help us do that? We've got some ideas, and we're hearing the things in the marketplace are sort of changing, and they're looking and going, there's tech stuff happening, there's people stuff happening, COVID's happening. How do we plot a route through that and grow? And that's kind of, as a commercial director in my last business, that's really what I was doing for clients. Except now I don't have a proprietary tech stack. I look at the market and I don't go, right, client, we've got this tech, so you're going to use this tech. I go, what's the best thing that your business needs to do? Yeah.
And you mentioned different sizes of businesses as well. Literally, you're literally scoping for all of them, aren't you? And kind of, being there and helping any size business, it doesn't matter.
100%. So a big thing I learned early on about who I am, and it goes right back to, my parents had fish and chip shop businesses growing up, and it's a part of me that I'm really proud of. Yeah. And actually, you learn to deal with people from literally all walks of life. And also, like, from a business perspective, I know some really senior people at really big businesses, but they don't get to change. They don't get to look at things differently because it's always been the way they've done things.
Yeah, of course.
And so really, I'm like a magpie. What attracts me, whether you're a £1 million turnover company or whether you're a £100 million company, if you're actually deadly serious about changing and innovating, then that's where, I'll gladly sit down with you.
Yeah. And just while we're on that topic, I mean, how do people get involved with you then? And alt theory, like, what's the best way to kind of get started?
So with alt theory, I think the the way that it seems to be unfolding, I've really taken I'm quite proud of myself actually, because I've taken a new approach to positioning myself, positioning the business. I'm basically reflecting out a growth story myself. So I'm saying, hey, I'm not 50 people in an office. I've exited and I've done these things, but that's kind of the past. This is the future. And I'd like you to come on board and follow me on that story. So that's kind of the public piece I've been doing. And that's been really, I think that genuine authenticity stuff really resonates with people because it's real and I'm not
That's
pretending.
what people want to see. Definitely. They want to see a man behind the business and kind of know you. And that's what people will sign on for, I think. And obviously having spoke to you, today and previously, I think that's definitely the one thing what will always sell, being a good person. And obviously, you can, I think that comes across quite well with you and hopefully businesses. Well, you're welcome, mate. And then hopefully people kind of jump on that and kind of, it does correlate well with what you're doing. You're trying to grow businesses, but you grow in alt theory as well. And, that journey is something you can kind of take on together, which is different to a lot of other things out there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I look at my old business, I look at friends' businesses, and I look at, okay, well, what can alt theory do that's different?
Yeah.
And I think that's a key thing for me now is really thinking about our model. And even like saying, are we consultants? I'm very careful about that phrase because it means sometimes negative things to people. So the way, I talk about augmented team support in a way that is different. So people look at us and go, so you become part of our team, not just an external look at it. I think that people who get that, they then say, right, okay, this feels a bit different. And that's, as we grow alt theory and the first people start to join us, I want them to feel that as well, that people are trusting us to help them grow their business. That's massive.
We're an extension of their team, which
Absolutely.
is so key. Definitely, that's something, what resonates with me, because that's something we say here. We want to be an extension of someone's team. No one wants to necessarily have a fragmented relationship with someone. They want to be, a part of the team. We all kind of move forward together as one and not separately. And I think that's massively key, especially with startups and scale ups. And that's something we've touched on before. We've discussed the kind of startup ecosystem and what we want to create, and that's where the Making It podcast came from, and obviously alt theory as well. I think it's important as a sector we come together and we kind of help each other grow, and that's kind of the future for startups, definitely.
Yeah, completely agree there, Will. I think, and I look back to when we started, and I look back at the early conversations that I had, and I remember one guy, hugely successful business person, in terms of, I believe I have a cat in the background now. That's like
it's bad. We can always get pets on, more guests.
Yeah, there's like a BBC thing happening right here, right now. But yeah, I remember a guy saying to us, really successful guy, who was like, why have you started a business in Leeds doing what you're doing? It's ridiculous. You should be in London.
Yeah.
Why are you even bothering in Leeds? And I remember thinking, and I'm probably quite stubborn like that anyway. And now I'd probably say something more direct. But when you sort of still, we were still late 20s at that point and still learning, and people, and that's the other thing you're asking me earlier about advice. I think what I've learned over time is obviously to filter it.
Yeah.
In that I know where I want to go, but sometimes that external perspective is good, but you've got to have your own confidence filter on it. I think that's probably what I've applied there. But back then I remember him saying that to me and thinking, oh my God, are we just making a really bad, and to be fair to him, maybe for the first 12, 18 months, it was probably like that, because, we're talking now about how do we really grow the ecosystem.
Yeah.
8 years ago, forget about the word ecosystem. It just wasn't there, there's just nothing there to support you.
Definitely. And obviously now, things are changing. Manchester, the Northwest, Leeds, Yorkshire, it's a huge tech hub now as well. And loads of startups are there in tech, out of tech. It is where startups are going. I think I saw an article from earlier in the year, maybe July, early August. It talks about how Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds have been nominated as the top startups in the top 10, I think it was, in globally as well. And we're not just talking about England now. So it is growing. There's so much scope out there, so much opportunity for people. It's just knowing where to start. And that's where you need that kind of assistance, that ecosystem, and obviously, help from people like you who kind of can guide people really, and been there and done it as well, which helps.
Absolutely. And I'm proud of the fact that now I've got quite a significant network of people straddling the Pennines, that I know that I could so young business starting out that might be a bit too early for alt theory to be working with, but they're trying to cut the teeth, and they're trying to get that first conversation or that first investment conversation. Compared to where it was 8 years ago, I know there's a number of people now go, you need to speak to that person, you need to speak to that person. And when I was commercial director of Coles 9 and we matured that business, I had a map on the wall in the office which basically had Liverpool on one side and Hull on the other, M62 corridor cutting right through it. And I'm like, if we can't do business in this, what 200 billion pound regional economy straddling the Northwest and Yorkshire, then we should go home.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the opportunity that we have now, is to really grow that. And I don't sort of see, I'm not defensive over Leeds. I'm not like, oh, we're competing against Manchester. Like, to me, you draw a line from Liverpool to Hull and put a big thing around it, and that's what we should be thinking about as the North. And not to forget our pals up in Newcastle either. So
yeah, that's it. I mean, the whole North is now massively growing, and we are one of the at the forefront now of kind of the startup community, and obviously growing. And more people are starting businesses. I do a weekly kind of roundup where I talk about new business information and startups and seed funds, and I've been looking at it today. So I hope you'll probably see the same outfit when I do it. But I was looking at it today, and there's so many businesses now starting in Leeds, across to, like you say, Liverpool, Manchester, and it is going to continue to grow. The key thing people need to know is kind of how to, and also something you touched on there, people, and that's the key thing. They need that network of people. Having the money and the funds is fantastic, but you need that personal perspective, people to help you grow. And obviously, not everyone can employ people, and that's where obviously outsourcing it to people what are part of your team and the extension of your team, and that's where obviously alt theory will come in, and hopefully help a lot more people and startups grow.
Hopefully, I've got a really good friend of mine, George Biddle, and he's set up something called the Grad Soc. You may have seen it, but they're really transforming the way that young people get into the first part of employment. And I think not everyone, just picking up on what you said there, not everyone has to class themselves as, well, I need to start my own business and I need to do this. Like, the entrepreneurial skills, which I always describe as sort of, you're comfortable, there's a wooliness in front of you and you're comfortable sat in that wooliness, right? And that's something that I've met people who would put it all on red if they could think, we're going to get a massive win on it. And I'm probably not as entrepreneurial as that, but I'll play the game, and but I think, like the Grad Soc piece, where you're getting students engaged and looking at opportunities, and I think that the models that I'm starting to see in this ecosystem now, where they're incentivizing early employees to take some risks, so it might be a smaller salary to start with, but they're saying, look, if we get to £5 million, this is what your interest in the company. So we're sharing some risk with you, and I think that's a massive opportunity that this country needs, and certainly this ecosystem needs.
Yeah, and that will only help people getting into it. Even helping young people get into it will only help the economy in in the long run. And that's something, you know, which obviously at the moment with the pandemic is huge. You know,
Absolutely.
we need to get back on our feet and kind of grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, getting people back in work, and also I think the concept of how we do work is something that I'm always interested in. And some of the, you know, we've got retained business clients with alt theory now, and there's a couple that are quite established, and their senior management team are going, what does the future of work look like? And these are traditional, what I would describe as traditional offerings, as traditional businesses, but they know the world's changed now. So how do people have a better work-life balance? 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, right? Do we really need to spend 2 hours a day commuting somewhere? You know, this is the whole thing that's, I think, is going to change and hopefully create more opportunities for certainly young people coming through, but also people that may be at the other end of the scale that have had fantastic careers, but now can give a day a month or 2 days a month to social causes or social enterprises or other businesses or young businesses. That's the opportunity we've certainly got now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you actually brought something up there where, you know, my previous guest on the show, he actually started a business where people can volunteer to help startups, and kind of, it's so important to kind of grow that community. And I know I keep going back to that, but especially with everything that's happened during the pandemic, you know, so many people having lost jobs, you know, we need to be a community and grow. And I think that's definitely key. Do you see most people going back to the office? I mean, I saw a news article break today about Pinterest actually paying 90 million to get out of a contract to go back to the office. So it seems like all the big companies are definitely moving towards that flexible workspace and kind of a place for collaboration. That's what the office is going to become now, not just, you know, where you work and go to every day.
Absolutely. It's a really great question in the sense of, I actually posted on LinkedIn about this on Bank Holiday Monday, which caused, obviously people were off and had a bit more time, and it's caused a bit of a debate about it, which certainly points level back at me as well. That's made me think about the whole discussion, because obviously so to answer your question directly, I think that I've felt that commuting and doing all of that's been daft for a long time. I remember when I first started at IBM, and I think it was 3 days in Leeds, 2 days in the Salford Keys offices.
Yeah.
And I'd spend these miserable commutes going into Salford Keys because the traffic was so bad on the M62. And I remember, like, the craziest thing I ever saw was I was like 6:30 in the morning, I'm bombing along the M62, clearly in the speed limit. And there was a car on top of another car, and the guy was just getting out. They'd had an accident, but I'm like, what? Oh, this rat race.
Am I seeing this, or is it 6:30? I'm just too tired.
Yeah, it's true. It was like a van that had just kind of driven on top of a car, and I've never seen anything like it. You know, because the traffic keeps doing that on the 62, doesn't it, during the peak times, and obviously just driven up on him. But I just think the sort of commute times, and I remember someone who managed me in the law firm, she lived in Nottingham, and every day she commuted to the Leeds office, which took an hour and a half each way. And I remember saying to her, "But why do you do that?" And she was like, "Because I have to."
Yeah.
As you just look at that and you think, yeah. And you know, I was talking to the managing partner of that office where I trained for 2 years recently, and you know, he's a really great lawyer. He's got lots of respect from his team. And I said to him, you know, what do you think the future is of office work? And you've got these massive plush offices. And he's like, "Pete, I can't see us going back." And it's exactly going back to your point with the client experience. It's like, where, you know, I can see the sort of coffee lounge areas and maybe some meeting rooms and maybe some hot desking stuff. But actually, do we need to put 500 people in a building? No.
Just don't think it's needed anymore. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, the social aspect, like we say, you know, people want to go to the office. I mean, I enjoy going into the office, you know, with my colleagues, having a laugh, but at the same time, having that flexibility to sometimes, you know, work remotely is so important. Not just for time, you know, I don't have to travel to and from the office every day, but mentally as well. I think it's quite refreshing to have that, sometimes a break in the week, or you know, you just just simply having a morning sometimes I take, you know, just at home, get things done, get started, and it just kind of clears my head for the day. And I think that's so important, especially after what's happened over the last few months, for people to have that.
Do you know what, mate? I completely agree with that. And I remember, so we've one of the many animals we've got in this house, we've got a dog, and I remember it was, obviously you were allowed an hour of exercise a day, weren't you, at one point? Yeah. And I remember taking the dog out for a walk. I think we were probably mid-lockdown, and I remember just getting on the top of the street, and this is normally a really busy road, whatever time it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You could have sat down and had your dinner in the middle of the road. And I remember seeing all these like little sort of what's the word when you've got your wood on the fire, the little burners going, and the TVs are going, all in these things. And I thought, actually, this is a really awful time, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like it could be an earthquake, it could be a natural disaster. It could have been what happened with Japan, but on some sort, with the nuclear reactor stuff. And the point I'm making is that I think we've had a massive wake-up call to how we actually manage ourselves, how we live our lives, how we interact with nature, and it's all converged. And you know what? I was accused of coming from so I said this on LinkedIn. I basically said, look, I think it's dead in terms of going back into cities for working full time. And I don't know why the government is saying to everybody that's what they want us to do. Clearly, there's in their top level piece, they've got access to, information and things that are saying, well, this is the financial numbers. But they came out with a figure of £480 billion if we don't all go back to work in the cities. And I was thinking, well, but that money's going to go somewhere else. And actually, why do we have to go back to the way it was before? And just going back to those earlier points, it's like, I think we've all had a little bit of a punch in the face about human life. And actually, do we want to live it a different way? And
yeah, definitely.
I think we do.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's been a disaster, and it's been horrible for many people, a lot of redundancies, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And even worse than that, unfortunately, people have been made ill and unfortunately passed away. But there are positives, what can still come out of this. And if one is that, we do work remotely, it does improve our mental health, it does improve our work-life relationship, then that can only be seen as a positive. And I think that's something, we need to kind of all sing that hymn and kind of get it out there to people and make sure, we're not forced back into the office, and we do have the option to work remotely if needs be. And that's going to help businesses grow as well.
That absolutely. And, you look at, so like as a central theme to alt theory, we're living, I feel like I'm really lucky in that I've got an opportunity to reflect back some of these thoughts. So, we've purposely put ourselves in a village, Bradford, called Saltaire. It's a World Heritage Site, but there's a lot of history to how that village came about through the Industrial Revolution and what that meant for the people of Bradford. So there's a whole sustainability piece there. I've kind of picked it because, you know what, it's 10 minutes down the road from where I live, and it's a nice place. I can walk there if I want, or I can just get in the car and drive down. And yes, we're on a train route, so people can get to us from the train. But I think when we start taking team members on, 3 days at home, 2 days in the office, it's also a location where clients can come. And I've had lots of interest so far there's a brewery nearby, there's some pubs, there's some cafes, restaurants, art gallery.
I've been there myself.
Yeah,
some nice
that's great, Will. Oh, you'll certainly be getting an invite to the alt theory party. So
I like it. Sounds good.
Cool. Yeah, and that's, it's like not everyone can and going back to a serious point you made, which is there are some really tough things happening right now, and so where we've already split off a percentage of profits that we're making into conservation work. We're also splitting off stuff that goes into inner city work with young people, because that is the responsibility of a modern business. It's not someone else's problem.
Yeah, and if there's any other reasons to get involved with alt theory, you need one more reason. That's it right there then, isn't it? Come on, yeah. Well, how can you say no to that? You know, that corporate social responsibility is so important today. You know, and that's what I think sets people apart, sets businesses apart. I mean, we do our charity work ourselves and donate 10% of our initial fees, and obviously we've just done ridiculous. We actually walked from Leeds the long way round. Everyone says this. How did you walk 80 miles from Leeds to Altrincham? But we walked the long way round, and the amount of questions we got on the way. But you know, we did it in these ridiculous dinosaur outfits, but these that were £13,000. So you know, that for us was amazing, and I think that's the difference, and that's what people want. That's what people look for now, not just a business. They look for the
absolutely. And that's great to hear you talk like that, because clearly, you know, you're adopting those values. It's not. I think. I don't know, I was reading an interview with a guy that's founded a search engine, and it's, you know, they're obviously pitching it. I'm pretty happy with Google, but there's always things to improve and there's always whatever. But he was basically saying that he could never see himself having a super yacht in a world where we live now, where we're in the middle of a climate crisis that's not going to go away. It's getting worse. So, and some of the, you know, you look at Marcus Rashford, with what he's doing with the raising the awareness around school meals. I don't know about you, Will, but I went to a school in Bradford where that was a key thing for lots of families, and still is. But it's like, I'm looking at it in 2020 going, why is this still like a massive thing?
Yeah, and that's what I think Marcus is trying to get across, isn't it? I mean, I actually know Marcus from when he was a kid. Actually not far from where we're based, and you know, I play football with a few people who used to play, you know, kind of mentored him as such, and he used to come down and watch the games and little things like that. And you know, he was just a little boy when he was around there, and obviously it's great to see that how hard his mum and dad worked, and I know the area quite well, you know, and how hard his mum's worked, to look after him and kind of help him grow. And to see him giving that back, I think, so important. And I think that's something a lot of people can take on board now and kind of realize that, you know, you need to be able to give back to your community. And if businesses can do that, then young people like Marcus Rashford and anyone really can follow in them footsteps and obviously give back to the community. And that's how we grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that make, you know, you go back to your point on the ecosystem. That's, you know, we've just spent, you know, 20 minutes or so talking about that ecosystem. It's not just businesses that need help or introductions. It's community. It's social stuff, and that's the key, man. It's the whole thing. It's not just that is a true ecosystem.
Yes, so. Definitely. So, I mean, obviously, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you, Pete. I think
likewise,
some great advice for people out there. You know, obviously the alt-theory stuff, people can just drop you a line, get in touch with you, and obviously have a discussion with you about that. And all your details will be below on when we post the podcast out. So please do get in touch with Pete. But to finish, one question I always like to ask people, you know, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given, and how would you kind of, you know, evolve that to give to other people?
Wow. Okay. You might have to edit the layout while I think about that.
That's
the crack now. What's the best piece of advice? Do you know what? I'm going to go with something that, you know, we've talked a little bit about learning and evolving and you know, earlier of this conversation. And I think the thing I would say to people is probably when I started Calls 9, I remember putting all this pressure on myself for a long time that I had to build it into something that I read about on TechCrunch, or I read about in this country, we're obsessed with success stories.
Yeah.
And we love it when people fail. It's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like, you had a go and you failed. Unlucky. Yeah. And it's like, well, but they stuck their neck out and they had a go. Yeah. And I think that when I read a book called, it was during lockdown, it was called The Everything Store. So have a look, if you're listening, have a look at The Everything Store. It's about Amazon. And it's a guy who basically is a New York Times columnist. He followed Jeff Bezos from the beginning when he left his job and set up in his garage through to obviously where he is today. And what struck me about it in terms of the business side of things was the unemotionality of which he applied growing that business. Now there's things in there that you'll read and you'll think, I bet it was this, or I'm not sure I would be that person. That's your own journey. Don't try and be Jeff Bezos. Don't try and reinvent Amazon. It's your own story. Yeah. But I think taking that pressure off and you look at what's around you, what struck me about that was he didn't really know where he was heading with it in one sense. He just kept going that next step and pushing it each day, and that daily sort of focus, mixing that in with the unemotionality of this is what we do during work. And it's like, this has been a really nice thing to do with you, Will. Have a chat, share some things. And if a couple of people hear it and pick up, that's brilliant. But after this, I go back to, I've got a demo call at 4. I'm working through till 8 o'clock tonight, right? That's the reality of building this business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, don't get caught in other people's hype and don't get caught in your own hype. Just focus on what it is that you're trying to do in quite an unemotional way, and be really focused every day at achieving that, chipping it off each time. Yeah. And I think that I've probably waffled a little bit there, but that's what I would.
I think that's perfect, mate. Yeah. I mean, that's what you said earlier. I remember you saying, put the right foot in front of the other. And that's exactly, the perfect advice, I think, for anyone starting a business, wanting to grow. Concentrate on yourself, and just try and make a beeline for what you want and go from there. So no, perfect, mate. I mean, amazing content, amazing talking to you today. I hope everyone else has enjoyed it. I'm sure they have. And please do, comment, guys, below and get in touch and let us know what you think. And yeah, absolutely amazing, mate. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Will. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely to chat.
No problem. Cheers, mate.
So guys, there you go. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope it provided some really good insight for you guys. Hope you enjoyed Pete coming on. We will get Pete back on the show, hopefully later on in the year or early 2021, to discuss how things have gone for him, how alt theory is progressing, and what insights he can give you again. Now, if anyone else wants to come on the show, please do drop me a message. All my details are obviously below. I'd love to have some more people on the show from startup background, people who have created a business and running it for 20 years and could provide some insight for people. So if that's you and you're interested in getting on the podcast, please do get in touch with me. Really excited to speak with you all. I hope you enjoyed it again, and thank you for watching. Take care, guys.